talking to Joel Lalgee today. He is an expert on content specifically for recruiters, how to market yourself. Tell us, Joel, how did you get started? How did you find yourself in this particular niche?
Yeah, great question. So I have been in the recruiting world recruiting agency world for the past 5 years. And probably for the last 18 months, I've been really focused on LinkedIn. Obviously, we all know LinkedIn, the business platform. And I got really passionate about creating content that's around recruiting, business, vulnerability, just real life. And started realizing that you can generate business from content, and you can generate business leads, and you can actually get on the phone more with warm calls. So decided about 2 months ago, I said, you know what? I want to help other recruitment owners and other recruiters develop a similar type of strategy so I can help them do less cold calling, but be on the phone more with warm calls. And so, that's how I got into my new company, which is Headhunter Media.
Yeah, so you're basically every recruiter's, like, I'm just going to say it, wet dream. So, like, like, I mean, seriously.
That's gonna be my new tagline on LinkedIn.
Yeah. Every recruiter's wet dream. Wow.
I've got like jokes now going, but I'm gonna refrain from going too far down that direction.
Joel, you're a better
no problem. I'll just go there. No, I mean, really, like, for real, like, in recruiting, cold calling has been an essential key feature. And what you're really saying is it's actually possible to build it up in a way that, like, people are coming towards you. Like, you guys, for those of you listening, that's a game changer. Like, when you have people seeking you out, it's so much easier to scale your business that way. And, like, I mean, I don't know about you, Todd, but I have to psych myself up to get on the phone and to do cold calls. I'm like, I've got to be, and, like, for most people in sales, like, you've got to be in a certain mindset to really, like, go out there and crush it.
100%.
Yeah. So for you, what do you find, like, and, like, I mean, I think it's also super cool because your background is actually originally in recruiting too. So for you, those of you listening, like, Joel not only knows, like, how to market, but he knows how to market specifically in recruiting, which makes this even more powerful. So if we're talking about this, what is some of your go-to strategies, or what would you want, like, a newbie recruiter, or a recruiter who's setting up their own shop, or a recruiter who's ready to scale? Like, what would you walk them through?
Yeah, great question. So I think we're talking about three different people. Obviously, the newbie, I'd say, you're never too new to share your story. So even new recruiters can actually build up a lot of confidence by right from the get-go starting to get used to writing either posts on LinkedIn, writing articles, and sharing even some of the struggles that they're having, or just sharing what they're learning from candidates in their particular industry. So I'd say if you're a newbie, obviously it's intimidating as it is learning recruiting and learning the industry, but you actually could generate a lot of stories around that can help other people. And there's still a lot of candidate relevant stories that you can be posting. And so I would encourage anybody who is a new recruiter, even though you might think like, hey, what do I have to offer? The stages that you're going through, there's a lot of people who are also in that stage. So it's a great time to just start getting used to how to brand yourself, how to market yourself. I'd say to somebody who is more seasoned, and so these are going to be people who are, I would say, anywhere from five years plus, let's say, in the industry. Obviously, if you've been in the industry a long time, and you've been very specifically focused on one area, so maybe you're just niche in construction, let's say, and you do mechanical engineering, and the only people you're going after is mechanical engineers, you probably have built your network, or at least your social network, very strategically. You've gone after clients, you've gone after candidates. And so the power of content, it's to basically, instead of emailing people and saying, hey, how you been, wanted to check in, the more you're able to produce content and the more content you're able to put out that's relevant to your clients, that's relevant to the candidates that you're trying to reach, you're going to stay in front of them. And so I think a lot of people, when they approach content marketing, there's a lot of it's almost like we forget like the actual purpose of it. And the purpose is like, yes, we want to tell quality stories. We want to bring high value, but a lot of it is just pure awareness. And what I mean by that is when you start posting every single day, your old clients that you worked with, they're going to see your face and they're going to know your name. And then what it also does is anybody that you've been targeting, if you've got a strategic LinkedIn plan and you're connecting with people within those strategic markets, they're going to start seeing your face a lot, which then means when you go to call them, they're going to have some recognition, or they're going to recognize your name somewhere. Or if you email them, they're going to start to, it's basically brand awareness. And so I think anybody at any stage can can start putting out content, and really it's not so much what does each individual message say. Obviously you want to make sure you're not just saying nothing. You want to have some quality in there, but it's more a case of just consistently getting in front of people. And I think what it actually does is it number one, it produces more warm calls, which everybody wants, but it also produces a confidence in yourself, because as you start writing and as you start becoming an influence in those spaces, you gain confidence in your own ability to actually know the industries that you're in. So there's a lot of intangible benefits for anybody at whatever stage they are in their career. It builds confidence. You start getting recognized at networking events. You start getting recognized more, which is huge. So I think anybody at any time, no matter where you are in your career, it's just it's an important thing to invest into. And the last thing I'll say about that is when it comes to content, as recruiters, we are trained in short-term mentality. Like we're hunters. So
Yeah.
hunter mentality is I kill, I eat, I kill, I eat, I kill, I eat. It's just adding in, the morning sowing of seeds. So in the morning before everybody's hitting the phones, you're posting content. What you're doing is you're sowing seeds into the future.
Mhm.
And the content strategy, it's a long-term play. This isn't something that gets you results overnight. But imagine in 2 years, if you do start having people come to you, you have candidates coming to you, you can really develop a nice pipeline. And that coupled with cold calling, then you start to enter in a more of like a super breed of recruiter that's not only networking and marketing, is also really skilled on the phone. And I think that's the place that I would wager to bet that most agency owners would want their people to be in. And they just need to really invest and support them in that mission.
So this really is like, one, obviously it is long-term, but it really is also very much about how to stand out. And it's about getting comfortable. Because so often we're not that comfortable, or like I'll be real, like here's what I look like when I'm recruiting. It's like messy hair, hasn't done anything, like, and I'm just gonna like not necessarily think about like putting a video of myself up. Yes,
Yep.
you guys, I cleaned up for y'all. But like, no, but for real, it's like I literally like go do a workout and then I like am hitting, like, you've got it, like timing is really important in recruiting. So it's like you've really got to be connected to your phone, you got to be connected to what's happening. And so yeah, sometimes that's in bed,
Yeah.
and like,
Yeah.
and it's not, I mean, it's like a couple minutes here, a couple minutes there, but what I'm really hearing is like there's a way to keep popping up that has people want to reach out to you. So with that, when you talk about sharing your story, like, do you mean how we got into recruiting, or what
Great
we're
question.
currently working on, or like, what do you mean there?
That's a great question. So the way I think of a story, I mean, there's multiple ways you can approach it. So obviously there's the story of the business story, like in your career story and how you got into recruiting. That's definitely part of the story. But then there's the day-to-day story. So there's different things that we come up against as recruiters that we all can relate to. So obviously we can look at the biggies, like the counter offer, or we can look at the rejected offer. We can look at the things that impact us a lot. And then there's other stories of just like you mentioned before with like the cold calling, like how do you get into that mindset? That's a story. Like how do you motivate yourself? And so I look at the storytelling aspect of it. It's ways to describe the different things that we go through as recruiters to engage an audience. And so the mistake that I see a lot of people doing is they'll automatically go, well, we need to bring value to the audience, so we'll give them 5 tips. Now, the problem is everybody's doing the 5 tips. So what I recommend to people is take one of those tips. And a great example would be like for job seekers, you say, show up on time for the job. So instead of telling people to show up on time for the job, tell a story of somebody not showing up on time, or somebody tell a story of 3 people that went to a job interview. The first one showed up half an hour early. The first one showed up second one showed up 10 minutes, and the third one showed up late. And make a story around it instead of just saying show up on time. And what you find is it's a lot more engaging, it's entertainment, and it's going to gravitate people to again just see you as that storyteller. So I think that for a lot of recruiters, that's a big challenge. Like, again, we're salespeople, so we're very kind of black and white. But take a look at what other people are posting, and take a look at what influencers are posting, and you'll see that a lot of them, they'll make points, but it's all through story. Because it's engaging to people. It's interesting. And so I like to just think like content is an engagement. In fact, it's really just entertainment. And like LinkedIn, Instagram, these platforms, they're mainly for entertainment. So you have to be entertaining with your content. And so again, maybe it's, hey, I've got 3 job openings, or we filled 3 roles. You can tell stories around that. You can say, hey, I know it's been a tough year, everybody, but here's some encouragement. I filled these 3 roles. And you're showing empathy, you're showing connection to the audience that, hey, it's a tough time, but I want you to know good things are going on, instead of just saying, here's our 3 wins for the week. Yeah, we're great recruiters. So
yeah,
it's getting in that mindset of like, what do people want to engage with? They want to engage with interesting stories.
Let me hop in and just highlight something for our audience, because Joel, you're making a great point, and I do the same thing where I'm like, I have to bring value, and so I'm like, my content has to have lessons and key takeaways and all that. You make a really good point that I want to land for everyone here, which is being funny and entertaining is valuable. Like, if you just
100%.
start telling stories and they're entertaining stories that aren't going to offend people, especially on LinkedIn, that in of itself
too late for me.
Yeah, too late. I think that is a really interesting thing, because so much of my content has been like, it's got to be a key takeaway, and it's just landing for me what you're sharing, Joel, that write the funny post, like write the funny thing about what happened on the way into work or what happened on the phone, and just showing up consistently that way, and just reminding yourself that these are entertainment platforms. Like, they're for entertainment. So, share stories that are interesting and entertaining. Don't always worry about, you have to wax intellectually and make sure that you give them some key takeaway. Like, just write some funny, real stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like what I hear a lot is like CTAs, like everything's got to have a CTA, right? A call to action. And I think the problem with that is, I think call to actions a lot of time, if they're blatant, they turn people away, and then you become the sales guy recruiter. And that's when you get unfollowed, and that's when people don't engage with you. And I can tell you, I've been posting 3 times a day for the last 18 months, all individual, all different types of content. I've done video, I've done slideshows, I've done live shows, put out a lot of content.
That's a major commitment. I just want to say, like, that's
probably
impressive.
about 4 hours a day. And that's, you start getting a lot of engagement, and you start responding to people in that engagement. It takes a lot of time, but I've done that because I want to experiment on a platform to understand it and learn what works. And about 6 months in, I actually started adding like more sales type posts, and the engagement drops a lot. It's probably a 4th or a 5th of what my regular content does. But my sales posts, I'll generate 2 to 3 leads from those sales posts each week, and I post 1 of those a day. So I get a pretty high ROI from that. But what I realized was, it's because I've worked so hard to build an audience, and I built so consistently. I didn't ask anything for probably about 6 months. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind, that yes, you can post about like the openings that you have and the openings that you're working on. But if that's all you show up with, you might as well not even do the posting. It's not, and it's not understanding even what the platform is. And you have to, the biggest recruiter I know on LinkedIn is probably Adam Karpiak. I mean, everyone knows Adam, and his posts are hilarious, and that's the angle that he's taken. And I don't necessarily say that's a blueprint for everybody to follow, but you have to have some balance with your content. And it's okay to sell. It's just, you just can't sell every day, and you can't share random articles. It's like, you've got to add yourself into it. Otherwise you lose the actual power of what content's really able to do, which is connect you with like-minded people and
Joel, just because
people
I'm
that want to work with
curious
you.
for just
Yeah.
because I'm curious about for people listening, when you say a sales post, like how hard is your sales post? Is it just an invitation to, reach out to you, or how do you draw that delineation so people know?
Yeah. So for me, my sales posts, I help recruitment agency owners with their content. So I will say something like, recruiters, comma, um, stop sharing boring job openings that nobody cares about without actually introducing yourself to the market. Here's 3 creative ideas of posts that you can do. Number 1, tell your personal story about how you, how you won your last client. Number 2, give some valuable advice to job seekers that are really struggling right now. Number 3, show up and inspire people. If you need help with this, please reach out to me. So it's a very, very blatant sales post.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have a really strong community. So a lot of people show up and like the post, and those posts will, like I said, they'll probably get a fifth of the engagement that the others do, but they don't. What I see is a lot of recruiters posting job openings or jobs that they're working on, and you go through and it's like they got 10 likes, and it's basically everybody in their office liking it. And maybe they get a couple
Yeah.
people in there, potentially, but why not triple that, and look to grow and grow and grow that to where, if you're consistent for 6 months to a year, maybe that post gets 5,000 views and you get 5 quality candidates reaching out to you. And then you hit the phones after that. So it's yeah, that would be the delineation that I would show as a difference between like a pure sales post and other content that you'd put out.
Yeah, and you've been doing this and going hard at it. What's the cadence that you like now? Would you say, let's say you're posting twice a day. Would you say, okay, maybe once every other week you can do a sales post? Or would you say, hey, don't even bother doing a sales post for the first 6 months. Like, just start getting it out there and building it. What are your thoughts? Because right now the audience, they're either trying to grow,
Yep.
or scale theirs, or they're breaking into. So, someone comes to you and they go, Joel, how should I start it? Like, kind of, what would you say there?
I would say, break it down by percentage. And I would definitely say the reason that you're going to be posting on LinkedIn is not for fun, right? So, and anything you commit time to, you want to get an ROI. So I would say try and keep to about 20% of your posts. So whatever frequency you post. So if you post once a day, one of those posts a week can be salesy. Um, and and then I think you have to break down like what that sales post look like as recruiters. I would say a great sales post would be, picked up 6 open positions. Here are the positions, and have a nice hook line in there, or like, yeah, I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, but it's great news that people are hiring. Here are the 6 positions. Reach out to me. That's your blatant sales post. Or you could go from the approach of, here are the 6 roles that I just filled. I've got some open time. Reach out to me if you're interested. In whatever industry you're in, and because obviously you've connected with a lot of people who know that you're a recruiter. So I would say when you're just starting, 20% would do. And then, but I wouldn't ever exceed more than 50% of your posts. Like I think the 50-50 is probably the most that you'd want to go. Um, and that's the thing, just to be respectful of like what the platform is about. And LinkedIn is not your personal, like, just sales ad thing that you're just going to blast yourself on every day. It is actually a social media platform. So you have to kind of respect that part of it. But you don't want to waste your time and completely just, I do not advocate somebody just starts posting inspirational fluff every single day. That might get you a lot of views, but no one's going to know you're a recruiter, and you're probably not going to get good leads and solid leads out of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So with most of the recruiters that you're working with, are you trying to tailor it to their personality too, or kind of, what's your process when you're kind of, when you're helping someone build out a blueprint of what they're going to do for content?
Yeah, so I actually outsource the content for them. So I essentially become a ghostwriter for them. And what I found is a lot of the competition out there will say, hey, here's the 250 blogs that we've got. Pick the top 5 that are your voice. And sounds okay, but I'm one thing I'm absolutely convinced of is unless you're actually sharing something that's you inherently you, it's just not going to be impactful. And what's happened in social media is we've seen these big examples of gurus and highly influential people that just post like daily motivational tips, and then we're convinced that that's the way to do it. And then what we really need to do is fast rewind 20 years ago and look at how they got such a big audience. And it's by them being themselves and not catering to the masses, but actually being themselves. So what I do is I meet with my clients once a week or once every 2 weeks, depending on how we have it set up. And I just ask them, like, what topics would you want to talk about? What topics are you passionate about? And I start hearing those stories. And the whole time that call, I'm basically just note taking. I then take those notes and I put them into a post that I know, a certain formatting and a certain ways to post on LinkedIn that will gain traction. And so I actually write the post as if I'm them. And then they edit it and they look at it and go, well, I probably wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say this. And what I found is after about 2 weeks, I just start to get a feel for exactly their voice and how they come across. And typically what you find is when even just like right from the get-go, like there's just automatically more engagement because it's their voice. And so it's like it's always going to be more powerful if your voice is in there. And then they start to learn the creative process, which is pretty kind of a simple thing. It's like, think of an example, think of a story. But I think sometimes people just need a kickstart, and it's a different way of thinking. But once you understand the pattern of thinking and how to think in that creative way, certain people I think can kick into it, and then other people are like, yeah, forget it. It's way too much work. You just keep doing it for me. So I've kind of seen it go either way.
It's kind of cool that you offer both. So it's really like if you want to be a long-term client, totally open, can totally do it for you. Or I'm actually going to teach you the strategy that I use that's successful, and you can then go implement on it, which is really awesome. I want to highlight something because when you put yourself out there, and I think this is really, really important for folks to understand, not everyone's going to like you, and that is okay. Like when you were talking earlier, Joel, about like losing audience members because you started to do sales posts, like, so what? They're not your buyers. And that's what I want to say about when we get brave enough to put ourselves out there. The truth is, I probably have offended some people earlier with what I said. Okay, no problem. I'm not for you. That's not, you know what I mean? But you've got to be willing to put it out there and to know that there are going to be people who don't resonate with you, who don't like you, or who attack you. I mean, it happens sometimes. And it's like, as somebody who loves to live with her foot in her mouth, that's the truth of it. And it's like, it's got to be okay. And so as you go to, I just really want you guys to understand this. As you go and you take some of what you're learning and you start to put some of what Joel has taught you into practice, know that not everyone's going to like you, and let that be okay.
100%. It's a great point. And I think I get it. I get the challenges of putting yourself out there and being rejected. Where I counter that would be, we are in an industry that's full of rejection. So all of us have cold called people, and we've got, oh, you're a recruiter, I hate you. Or I talked to 10 of you today. And the way I actually flip it on its head is, I think there is that I've talked to people before, and they say, well, what happens if the big CEO at the company reads my post and he doesn't want to work with me? And I say, well, guess what? He scrolls on, he doesn't pay attention to it. He just sees your name. It's like, I'm not interested. But think about the 3 CEOs that actually connect with your message, and then they want to work with you. And so it's flipping the narrative on that and going, great. You know what? I wish I had a list of people that wanted to work with me, because those would be the people I cold call. And I think that's what content does. It kind of actually helps bring those people that you will work with and work with well. And it can sometimes weed out people that maybe you would spend months chasing down, and then you chase them down and they just end up being a terrible client. And I think that's the other side of content that's important. It's like, it can kind of weed out the negative people that you don't want to work with. And I just think as recruiters, we're so used to taking on anything, because it's easy for us to get in that hamster wheel of, especially full desk contingent recruiting. I mean, it can get very hey, I'll take that on. I'll take this on. I'll take that on. And I think content, if you start to attract inbound leads, I could tell you a kickoff call with someone who's reached out to you, wanted to work with you.
It's so different. So different. It's like, okay, what are your
Exactly.
prices? And I'm a yes. You know, like I'm just a
Hun-
yes.
100%.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good.
And that's powerful. And I would say too, you know, that's only happened to me probably 2 or 3 times, and that's like the gold mine. But just even having awareness, and you know, it's great to like have old clients reach out and be like, hey, I saw that video and it made me think of you, and then you start the conversation with them. It's so much easier than, you know, sending out emails to people and saying, hey, how you been? Awkward. You know,
Right.
let's set up a check-in call type thing. So
Yeah, absolutely. You've made so many incredibly wonderful points. And Joel, I know that you have a free gift for our audience. Would you share with them what that is?
yeah, absolutely. So and we'll have the links, but I have on my website. I offer it's basically a free guide to how you can start using LinkedIn 30 minutes a day, and it's an engagement strategy plus a content strategy. The full disclosure that I always give with people with this is, you know, we mentioned it before, but I probably spent 3 to 4 hours a day. So I went all in on LinkedIn, but I do believe that it's like anything. It's more to do with consistency over time than just, you know, spending 4 hours a day for a month will be less effective than spending 30 minutes a day for a year. So if you can get into the pattern of that I lay out in that roadmap, it's got client engagement, candidate engagement, and how to build an audience, how to engage with other people in the community. If you can follow those guidelines, you'll be doing infinitely more than most people and do it in a strategic way. And so 30 minutes obviously compounds to, you know, I don't know what that is over a year, but it compounds in hours, and you'll see results from it. So I offer that free. I believe in just giving away that value. And yeah, I think it's a cool little guide, and hopefully it can help with any of the questions that come up even from this conversation.
Y'all, that's amazing because the sooner you can start getting into a pattern, the like more like it's easier to repeat it, and it's just like, okay, go, and you just do this. So you
100%.
guys, to get this, just scroll down and click the button. It will take you straight to Joel's gift. And then, Joel, what's the number one thing you want our audience to know?
Oh man, I knew this question was coming too, but yeah, I say that the number one thing I think is to keep in mind is to just understand that like the digital strategy, it's not there to keep your employees off the phone. It's not there to keep you off the phone. It's actually to keep you on the phone, just with warmer leads, and not to ignore the digital world, but actually embrace it, and embrace it and see it as another tool in the arsenal that you have. And I believe that those that understand and learn how to take digital interaction and turn it into real world interaction will be the people who are successful over the next decade. And so just embrace it, learn about it, and yeah, just and don't be too tough on yourself either, because you know we all make mistakes with posts as well. And yeah, that's what I would love to leave everyone with.